Today we are reading Investigation of Ancient Pattern Rubbings from the Luofu. A scholar left rubbings of ancient patterns all over the delve, seemingly depicting events from the history of Xianzhou. Ethereal Shipcraft. According to the calendar system used by the Xianzhou, the day of departure is deemed as the beginning of the star calendar. Hence, things that took place before the departure, called the history of the primeval Imperium era, are often neglected. It's not a secret that the Xianzhou originated from a certain famous ancient world before it departed. However, the coordinates of that world, whether erased by the Xianzhou people or just lost in time, have long since become a secret and unreachable place. From there comes a myth that is still well known to this day. In this civilized world, the sovereign whose name is no longer remembered eliminated their remaining opponents on the planet one by one, just like most other conquerors on their planets. After that, the invasion of an alien civilization took place. According to the historical sources we have studied, these aliens were born with wings and called wing weavers by the ancient people of the Xianzhou. In the battle against the aliens, the emperor discovered that the aliens hardly aged and could live on for as long as they liked. Blinded by greed, the dying sovereign yearned for eternal life. He or she, as the gender of the sovereign has never been confirmed, summoned craftsmen from all over the world and ordered them to build the first version of the Xianzhou ship. Then the sovereign sent wise officials and valiant generals to space to search for the immortality elixir. For modern scholars like us, we know that the blessing of immortality is related to the Aeon of Abundance. Did the ancient people know what they were looking for when they departed? I am not sure about that. Based on my experience, I think they were just pursuing an unrealistic goal based on the astral chart they seized from the aliens. Lone Voyage Era. The departure of the 9 massive ships signaled the beginning of the Xianzhou civilization. The Intelligentsia Guild once had copies of ancient ship logbooks in their collection. Judging from the stamps, the ancient books could be traced back to 7 millennia ago if converted from the Amber Era calculations. At the time, the ship looked nothing like its current appearance, and it was populated by a short-life species, the ancestors of the Xianzhou people. According to research, the crew took turns to rest using a watchful sleep system to extend the service time of a generation by as much as possible. During the voyage, the Xianzhou people observed many cosmic wonders, such as the Void Song whales, the favorite of the Astral Ecology School, the star wall built by the Amber Lord, etc. The voyage was not all smooth sailing, as the Xianzhou people had suffered greatly when facing 2 types of long-life species. One of them is called the Viscorpus, a peculiar creature with a gelatinous texture that is almost extinct today. It is said to be able to change its body shape freely, to develop organs that can be used as weapons. Being able to traverse in space with its bare body, it is fit to be called a cosmic epidemic. After eliminating the Viscorpi, the crew encountered the Heliobi. There are few entries about the Heliobi in the Intelligentsia Guild's records. According to the Xianzhou people, the Heliobi are flames that can speak. Heliobi can suck the souls and desires out of humans, and control them like puppets. I suppose they belong to the Shapeless Order and the Spirit Essence family. Toward the end of the voyage, the Xianzhou people met alien civilizations that could communicate with them peacefully for the first time, the IPC and the Intelligentsia Guild. Isn't it interesting? We showed the Xianzhou people a new code of civility, shared with them technologies they had never seen before, and welcomed them to the big galactic family, and became one of the allies protected by the Amber Lord. Exchanging knowledge for mutual benefit is the spirit of the Intelligentsia Guild. Ambrosial Arbor's arrival. The manifestation of the Aeon of Abundance is undoubtedly the apocal event in the history of Xianzhou. Legend has it that following Yao Shi's appearance during the voyage, the Ambrosial Arbor arrived to convert the Xianzhou natives into a long-life species. The 4 centuries that followed were the so-called Golden Age of Xianzhou. During this period, the Xianzhou people created countless unparalleled miracles based on Ambrosial Arbor. They achieved rapid development in biology, especially the field of bionics, and invented ligneous free roamer, follow earth, miracle pills, and the altered flesh that could modify one's body. The invention of the Jade Abacus, a crystal computer, boosted the calculation ability of the Xianzhou people tremendously. Of course, many of these techniques are no longer recoverable now, as the Xianzhou natives later went through a long era of turmoil and lost their celestial traces. If I have the chance to further examine the historical sources and antiques, I believe I can work with my Intelligentsia Guild colleagues to recreate some of their inventions, such as the elixir of immortality brought by the ambrosial arbor. Still, the concept of immortality is taboo to the Xianzhou people, and they have created many containment mechanisms to guard against it. It is wise to let it remain an idea. Living and flaming catastrophes. According to my study, the Three Sufferings era is the darkest time in the history of the Xianzhou. In such chaotic times, even survival was a luxury to the long-life species. A reminiscence of the Fire Taboo Festival by Bai Zhao, a Sengcheng citizen, wrote, "During the three great calamities, the sky and the earth were on fire. Although many mighty rulers appeared, everyone was as helpless as pigs." The living catastrophe brought about the dark period when everyone was as helpless as pigs. The long-life species had realized the grave social problem stemming from their immortality, but there was no humane solution. Soon, the booming population led to internal strife. A long-lasting conflict ensued between the nobles that controlled the resources in society and the coarse that could not see the meaning of their lives. The conflict ended when the Yuan Chao capsized. It was not because people felt bad for the 130 billion innocent Yuan Chao souls that perished. The Arumatans began a massacre that killed both the nobles and the coarse for the sustenance of Xianzhou. Therefore, both the nobles and the coarse had no choice but to join forces to eliminate their common enemies. After the battle, the Arumatans were relinquished of their intelligence for good. Society became more peaceful due to the drastic dwindling in the population. This joke isn't funny. The Xianzhou people barely recuperated when the Wing Weavers, plunderers among the denizens of abundance that adapted to the cosmic environment the best, approached Xianzhou with their star-devouring Muldrasil. Just like that, the flame catastrophe came. A shot from the sky. One of the most common literature themes in Xianzhou is fire deification. In the era of the flaming catastrophe, a hero was sabotaged by the nobles and imprisoned. The hero later worked with the Flint Emperor, leader of the Heliobi, and destroyed the Muldrasil, the Wingweaver's lair, with a divine arrow. The hero's body dissipated, but it was not the end of his life. Instead, he ascended to become the Hunt, also known as the Rainbow Arbiter by the Xianzhou people. However, there is no factual evidence to show that the hero is Lin. Almost all theories that support this assertion are less than credible, given that they can all be traced back to a single origin, which is the Ode to Rainbow Path. This is why the Alliance has not made its stance clear about this assertion, although it is widely circulated among the folks. Well, although the Alliance has never denied the authenticity of the fire deification myth, we all know it is equal to a denial from the Alliance's standpoint. Mara and Null. Besides immortality, the status of Mara-struck is another taboo on Xianzhou. Although the Xianzhou people are tightly-lipped about this matter, many clues can be gained from the denizens of abundance. Many opine that immortality is not a blessing, but a curse. This is directly confirmed by the mutations that can be observed on the denizens of abundance. No one would be willing to become such a monster. On the other hand, the Xianzhou people are different. Although they are also a long-life species, they look similar to us and do not look odd physically, which is quite inviolable. Like how death awaits us at the end of our lives, it is said that the Xianzhou people might go berserk and enter a state named Mara-struck at the end of theirs. They will stop finding life exciting and enjoyable and become overwhelmed by the regret and trauma of their past. Gradually, they will lose their humanity. This process sounds scary and ironic at the same time. Although they will not experience death, what awaits them at the end of this is something even more terrifying: madness. I witnessed how scary it is to be Mara-struck during the recent incident on the Luofu. I strongly believe it is not just a spiritual change, but the intrinsic nature they had since their conversion into a long-life species. Perhaps it is time for me to switch to a new focus on my research. Divine Root Subdual. According to the history of the Xianzhou, Yubi, the High Elder of the time, moved the entire luminescent depths into the Luofu delve with the help of hundreds of preceptors. He cast Cloud Hymn to seal the ambrosial arbor roots under the water to prevent them from corrupting the folks with plague. About the actual means of sealing the ambrosial arbor roots, the history of the Xianzhou only describes that they are suppressed with Cloud Hymn. Actual record of the vastness leaves me even more speechless, as it merely records that the roots are suppressed with a secret spell. It's all because the long-life species prefers to keep their technologies a secret. The so-called secret spell is actually just a scientific technology of the Vijayattara that is kept classified. After the roots were subdued, the Vijayattara preceptors built the Dragon Vista Rain Hall and a statue to commemorate Yubi. Sutuin, the preceptor that contributed the most financially, engraved the account of Preceptor Sutuin crafting a statue of the High Elder on the statue base. To my knowledge, many Vijayattara loathed the story that praised Yubi for pacifying the 6 charioteers and creating a peaceful era. Their sentiment is not hard to understand. From the Vijayattara's perspective, they offered the precious sacred realm from their hometown and the ichor lines they took pride in. For an analogy, it is like the Intelligentsia Guild offering the rarest tome in its library in exchange for a place to stay. While the upheaval in the Scale Gorge waterscape was ongoing, my investigator friend and I did a simple research. First of all, we found that the Vijayattara did indeed use an unknown technique to gather water around the roots of the ambrosial arbor, like how it was written in the books. Secondly, we discovered an amazing relic hidden in the depths of the water. I have no idea what Bernini took from it back then, but I believe I will figure it out soon. High Cloud Quintet. The Intelligentsia Guild once witnessed and even participated in multiple battles between the Xianzhou people and the denizens of abundance to record and interpret the Xianzhou people's tactics and techniques. The brutality and darkness of every battle had always helped those dazzling souls shine. In addition to the well-known figures like the 7 Arbiter Generals, there are many legendary heroes of the Xianzhou who have left their names in history. High Cloud Quintet is a historical story of the beloved heroes of the Xianzhou people. As members of the long-life species, they only had a short-lived brilliance, making their story even more splendid. When the denizens of abundance gathered a massive army to attack Yu Chui, 5 heroes from different Xianzhou ships came together. Among them was a sharpshooting Foxian pilot and a short-life species that came from Xianzhou to learn. The 5 ventured to perilous lands and successfully killed the enemies. They destroyed the incarnosphere created by the denizens of abundance and prevented the Yu Chui from collapsing. This legend inspired many Xianzhou poets and Foxian inertia, and their works made the 5 heroes famous. Unlike the historical background behind the story of the 7 Arbiter Generals, the story of the High Cloud Quintet is more like a heroic tale created by the folks. Unfortunately, their heyday did not last long. In less than a century, the heroes parted ways and passed away. There are even a dark prophecy hinting at depravity and betrayal among the 5. Other than General Jing Yuan, who can still be often seen in public now, the rest of the group has faded into oblivion and is hardly mentioned. As a cultural phenomenon, the High Cloud Quintet seems to have always existed alongside the Alliance over time. This reminds me of a serialized novel that has been active for more than 30 years. There is a story titled 17 Days of Crown, which centers around a regime in the history of the Morrowind Kingdom that existed for only 17 days, destroyed by the Antimatter Legion. Despite the short reign, the story of the regime will never end. This is probably how the Xianzhou people perceive the High Cloud Quintet. As long as people keep telling their stories, the stories will go on forever, and so will the best times of the Alliance. After all, it is not hard to be entranced by the illusion of nostalgia.